And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the insipid and puerile forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday, almost exactly 3 weeks until the primary election in Wyoming. And, you know, the final days of an election are to me some of the most exciting because, well, I mean, just the business that I'm in, but candidates tend to get super, super desperate. And that is, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff we forgot to do months ago, and now we're going to try to cram it in to just a couple of weeks. And so, I mean, congratulations. Your mailbox is probably going to be crammed even more than it was a month ago. Everybody's got campaign cash to blow, and, you know, there might just be a possibility that one last mailer may turn somebody your way. But the rest of us all pay the price for it. The truth is, most people have probably made up their mind.
You should be happy to know that we made a decision in my campaign.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
A momentous decision or just a small one?
Normally we send one out in the last week or so before that, but
okay.
Partly with the growing popularity on both sides now of early voting. By that time, you know, I'm already running into people, oh, I've already voted for you,
yeah,
that sort of thing, and that's cool. But looking at the cost, and it's about, for the last card I wanted to send out, it was going to be about $4,000 by the time it was all told. And I just thought, I'm not sure that's the best way to spend $4,000 at this juncture, especially after Steve Freese, others have just inundated you with those. So it changes it. So then okay, what do we do different?
Yeah, what are you going to do different?
I don't know. I'm still thinking about
So
that.
are you a proponent of early voting?
Not particularly. You understand that in the 10 years that I served all over the world, I had to and vote by mail. You know, no, I think it should be election day. I even said on the House floor that voting should be harder. We're trying to make it easier, and I said voting should be harder. You know, look at some of these countries where on election day they travel over hill, over dale.
And they dip their finger in the inkwell.
Yeah. Well, voting is one of the most important things that we do. And I get a text today. Hey, I haven't really been paying attention. Who should I vote for?
I know.
Okay, I'm grateful for that because but that is sad. I mean, this is one of our greatest honors to be able to do this, and we ought to take it very seriously.
Well, I think that many people do. I still run into folks, like I talked to one day before yesterday, guy that says, I just don't vote. There's no reason to. And I explained to him, well, look, in Wyoming, it's often that we have elections that are decided by a few votes. And I told him the story about and I won't mention any names, but a couple of precinct people in Sheridan. They waited until election day to vote, and then they had to run out of town. They thought in the morning to go pick up something for their business. Well, there was a snowstorm, and they couldn't get back before the polls closed. And guess how many votes they both lost by? One.
That's pretty remarkable.
My precinct seat last time around, I won it by one vote.
Yeah.
And okay, so your first time you won 38 votes.
Yeah.
Alan Slagle,
yeah.
What was it, 13 votes?
I think it was more like 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
It was really, it was.
So your vote does matter, and I'm a proponent of voting on election day.
Yeah.
Election day at our house is a big deal.
For one thing, we always have the November surprise. There are things that happen that you just don't know.
Well, you probably can't predict.
Yeah, and
and here's another thing too. Maybe if you're running for like your precinct position or city council or one of those nonpartisan, right, school board, those sorts of things, maybe you're just running your campaign on your own. Maybe you and your spouse. But when you get up to like the legislature, you've got to have people that are helping you along, right? Somebody to keep track of, okay, have I gone to this neighborhood or that neighborhood? Where are we at with the finances?
Yeah.
You got to have people. Well, you don't know what all of those other people are doing. And so something might happen. I don't know, maybe they get stopped for a DUI or something. That they happen to be your campaign manager. Well, what they do reflects directly on your campaign, because that is definitely how it's going to come out in the press. That's how I would publish it.
Yeah.
Candidate so-and-so's campaign manager caught doing this. That's totally the headline it would be. And so there's always a possibility of something crazy happening in the closing days of the election. And, I started to say this, but at our house, election day is a big deal. Always has. Debates are a big deal, and election returns are a big deal. And my wife and I, the lovely Christine and I, have decided that, hey, we should try to make this an event. It is so important that we should try to make election day an event. And so we've already had had discussions about, okay, what are we going to throw election night? Are we going to throw a party? Are we going to throw a watch party? I think we probably should. But I think you should go vote on election day. I don't like this early voting stuff.
We traditionally have a watch party, and we all get together at one place or another. And
well, the one we did 2 years ago, at the Eagles, that was a pretty good party.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. 4 years ago, it was at a private residence out the south of town. Had a lot of room.
But and here's the reason why. Okay, that voting is the one time that you get a say in what happens with your government. Okay, after the election, maybe you're friends with the representative. Maybe he's your producer, but you don't get to tell him.
Yeah, you
will vote this way.
He don't listen to you.
No, he never does. I shouldn't. That's not true at all. During the session, maybe not this past session, but in ones previous, you and I have had lots of conversations. But you don't actually get a choice in the matter, except when you vote. And I think that we should make it a party. I think we should make it an event.
I think there's a caveat to that is you can go and testify to committees, or you can even testify remotely via Zoom.
True.
And just taking the opportunity to encourage more of you to do that. When you're sitting on a committee and all you hear is the other side of the issue.
Well, there's been. I remember one time, and I don't testify that much when I go down to Cheyenne, because one, I don't really think it's my lane. I mean, I'm in the media, and my lane is to tell you what's going on. But on occasion, there are bills where I can't resist. Convention of States is almost always one of those. But whenever there's a bill about the media, so I don't remember exactly the context of the legislation, but it was to allegedly to provide protections to journalists so that you didn't have to reveal your sources. I mean, we're always told that a journalist never has to reveal the sources. Well, in Wyoming, there's no law that protects you. You should keep your sources confidential, but what that could potentially do is get you in the slammer, and it's up to you to protect your sources. Well, this bill allegedly would have provided protection, but really what it did is there was a line in there that said, except in cases of defamation. All right, so what that bill would do is make every time you wanted to know something from a journalist, you just sue them for defamation. And so I went and testified, and I was like, look, this is a giant gaping hole here. You are writing a bill for lawyers is what you're doing. And to their credit, and I don't remember the committee, but to their credit, there was an amendment that took that out. And the bill eventually didn't come up on the floor anyway. So, I mean, you bring a valid point, Ken, that you should go testify. But I think that the greatest influence that you have is when you go and vote. And I will say this again, that you are much more likely to lose your liberty at the local level as opposed to at the state level or definitely the national level. City councils, school boards, county commissions, those races affect your life to a much greater degree than anything that happens in Cheyenne. And so, and those elections tend to have kind of low voter turnout. You know, this is a midterm election. President Trump, there isn't a presidential election on the ballot. And so many people are just going to not go vote, which I think is a giant mistake. Because in Wyoming, in the midterm elections, we elect the governor. We've got the top 5 electeds. You've got school boards, you've got city council seats, county commission seats. All of those are tremendously important. And just look at our county commission. Like, if you don't like the flower pot next to the courthouse, there's an easy way to make sure that doesn't happen again. Go vote against the person or people that made that happen. I won't mention any names, but Christy Haswell. But you got to go vote. And if you don't, you should just shut your mouth later on because, I don't even really want to hear about it.
Yep.
And here's the other thing, too. Usually the people that don't vote, they end up being the most vocal on social media.
Yeah.
Why the heck should I listen to you?
I wish there was a way, remember the scarlet letter? When you go vote, they give you the little sticker.
Yeah.
It should be a tattoo in the middle of your forehead.
I voted.
And if you want to start saying something, you'd better have an "I voted" tattoo on your forehead. Nobody's going to pay attention.
I got to tell you about this exchange. I don't often get into long back and forth on social media, but this one last night, they called this guy. I don't even remember his name, but he says he referred to the Republican Party platform as cult-like, and so my question is, okay, explain to me why the Republican Party platform is cult-like. And the next response is, all you Freedom Caucus people, you're all the same. You're all in a cult. Okay, well, you didn't answer the question. Here it is again. And then the next response was more Freedom Caucus derangement syndrome. Don't you get it? You're all in a cult. No, okay, answer the question.
Yeah.
Here's what it was.
It's really, really, really hard to pin people like that down and say, all they're doing is parroting a distilled version of what they hear in the press.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which also doesn't have any substantial facts in it.
And my final response is, does this drivel work on all the people you hang out with? Because it's certainly not working here. And it's just more loud noise is all it is. I mean, it's just a cacophony of voices that are largely uninformed. And like you said, Ken, they're just parroting what they hear, from the media, from other people on social media.
I wonder sometimes. I knocked on a door last night, and the guy answers the door and says, "Well, hello, Ken." He says, "I recognize you." He said, "You're the one that got the money for the what's the word? The DD waivers."
Yeah.
Disabilities. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's something government actually should do." He says, "Well, I work for Easter Seals.
Okay.
And I really appreciate what you did. You definitely got my vote." That's kind of gratifying because I would suspect that a lot of the people that work in jobs like that, all they hear is the other side.
Right.
But to do something that stood out, that made a difference to them. And I don't know how many people, does he stand up for me at his workplace? Does he mention that to other people, or does he just quietly
I think
let
that
it go.
honestly, I think that most conservatives are kind of quiet about it. I mean, there's the people like you and I that, that I've got a yard
Never
yard
did
full
learn
of
to shut
signs
up.
and really hard to get me to shut up. But I think most people are pretty sick of all the noise.
You do have a yard full of signs, but I went by there yesterday and I noticed there's one missing.
There is one missing.
What
You want to know
gives?
why? The wind blew it out, and I haven't put it back.
Yeah, fine excuse.
Yeah, well, of course, that was a while ago. All right, I'll tell you what. I've got one. I've got the sign. I'll go put it back up for
What
you.
does it say?
It says Ken Pendergrass for House District 29. No, it
That's
doesn't.
the one.
No, it doesn't. So it was you that was by my house.
Yes.
Okay.
In the flesh. Now there are some people that have done some canvassing for me, but I was up in your neighborhood
Needed
yesterday.
a good day, huh?
Yeah. It was hot and nasty, and I didn't want to go. And I thought, well, I'll just go to a good neighborhood.
Did you meet Crazy Kathy?
Across the street from you?
No. That's she's actually they're MAGA people, but Crazy Kathy lives on the next block over, almost directly across.
No, most of the people back there did not answer their doors, including some people that I could see them sitting in the living room, but they saw who it was. They just didn't answer. I think everybody's got fatigue.
I think so.
We're just done.
But you know what? I'm sure in the 8th inning of a baseball game, some players are fatigued. Certainly the pitcher is.
Yeah.
But I think that we should be like Nolan Ryan, that in any given day, we might have to go extra innings, and you might end up throwing 235 pitches.
What I like about going door to door this time, this late in the thing, is now people are starting to pay attention.
Yes.
And they're much more apt to ask a question or engage. I went to one door, the guy that I've been to a few times in the past, he comes from over in the Bighorn Basin, and he's got his bong set up. Hey, man.
Was it like the Big Lebowski? Did he
no.
have his White Russian?
No, nothing quite like that, but it's an interesting time. So I didn't stay and talk to him as long this time as I have in the past.
And I think one of the things that has always fascinated me about politics is that it is, and this is going to sound a little obtuse, but politics is really a game. There's a lot of strategy to it. There's points, votes.
It's a game from the outside.
Well, it's a game from the inside too. But like all other games, there are rules to this game also. And one of those is that you have to conduct your campaign ethically.
Oh, I know where you're going with that.
There are rules that we have in statute. A big one is 913-105. And that one pretty much says that you can't use, this is the one that prevents you from putting up a campaign sign in the front of the courthouse. This is the one that it's later on. I think that actually it's Title 22 adjacent, but that you probably shouldn't campaign inside a polling location. But 913-105 says that you can't use public facilities for political purposes. And there are some candidates in Sheridan County that are doing that very thing. And here's the thing. These are the very people, and I'm not saying this candidate in particular, but his supporters are the very people that accused me of holding an unfair debate. I don't know how that could be possible since I didn't even run Ryan Koltiska's debate. One of our other precinct people did. But it's his campaign folks that accuse me of rigging the game, somehow having very little to do with it. I was able to cheat for our candidates, but I didn't do that.
It's interesting because they wouldn't have taken any cheating there.
No. In that debate, there was no cheating required.
It was kind of like playing tic-tac-toe with a 3-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, it's somebody was playing chess, and Mark Jennings was playing chess. Ryan Koltiska was playing checkers. All right, so go ahead and play this video, Ken. It's a little bit long, but I want you to notice what you see in the very beginning. We've all seen these signs. We know exactly what they mean. And we all know what a state fence looks like. See, there it is. Okay, so Wyoming State Trust land. And the reason why you know it's a state fence is they're all in pretty good shape. watch.
Go.
State fence, sill, yeah. Oh, look at how straight that fence is, Ken. Obviously not a private fence.
You don't have a bunch of elk running through it either.
Yeah. See, look, the posts are even. Look at all those. Uh-oh! What's that? That's a Ryan Koltiska sign on state land. Okay, now, again, this is why we had the conversation in the very beginning that you have, I'm sure you have campaign people that are out putting up signs. Certainly not every candidate puts up every sign. People get their own signs and they go put them elsewhere. But all of this reflects directly on the candidate. And in this case, Mr. Ryan Koltiska has one of his big signs on state land. You don't get to cheat in an election, though it happens often. And so, before you even ask, yes, I sent Mr. Ryan Koltiska a message asking for comment, and it's because I'm going to cover this in an article later on today. But I did ask his campaign for comment on it, and there will be an article. But just be aware here that the rules are in place, and everybody has to follow them. And when you break Wyoming statute, which this is a clear violation of 913-105, you need to be held accountable. And if that means, hey, Ryan, you've got a sign out on state land, go take it down. Okay, that doesn't really unring the bell, though. How long has that sign been sitting there? I mean, I just got that video yesterday, so who knows? It may have been sitting there for months. But the long and the short of it is that it's on state land and it needs to be taken down. It's a violation of Wyoming law. And Ryan, I realize that you think you need all the help that you can get, but this is a bridge too far, my friend. All right, so let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some Democratic socialists, because this is yet another thing that does happen in Wyoming. I'll tell you about it when we come back.
I'm Karen Weber, and I'm running for House District 5 in Goshen County. We need to decrease the size and scope of government. Expenditures have increased 59% under Governor Gordon. We need to decrease residential property taxes because you cannot own your own home if you can be taxed out of it. In terms of the economy, right now, agriculture ranks below the median in the Cowboy state. Agriculture GDP has decreased 22% in the last 7 years, and that is unacceptable. It's very important for Goshen County that we support our agricultural producers. That's what I want to do as your next representative. I ask for your vote on August the 18th. Paid for by Weber for House District 5.
The following ad was paid for by Brent for governor.
You won't find him leading a horse out of a barn or leaning against a corral with the sun setting behind him, because Wyomingites don't need a candidate who creates a good photo op. What you will find is a hard-working, experienced leader who believes Wyoming should always come first. A conservative grounded in strong values and steady principles. Ready to lead Wyoming the right way. Brent for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Wednesday, podcast day on the program. I've got a great interview with Jim Corkery that I'm going to play for you on the podcast, which will be published shortly after today's episode. I usually, and I wish I could get them out earlier, but when we've got a morning program, it's hard for me. But usually the podcast comes out around noon, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. But it's a great interview with Jim Corkery, who is running for the Senate down in Casper. Make sure that you don't miss it. Later on, maybe tomorrow, we'll play the interview with Corkery. It's a video, too, so we'll play it on the program. But at the top of the hour, at 9 o'clock, Brent is supposed to be joining us here in the studio. Have a little 3-week till the election chat, find out how things are going. So stick around. He'll be here at 9 o'clock. When people tell you who they are, you should believe them. Gone are the days when we can disregard the things that people say as just, well, you know, they were just kind of running at the mouth. They don't really believe that. Well, the socialists do. The communists do. The Democrats do. And when you drive by a Democrat protest in, in your town or, here in Sheridan, when you drive by the courthouse, and you see them holding signs with swastikas on them, you should believe them. Nobody makes a sign that has a big giant swastika on it and then displays it in public unless they actually believe in what they're doing. And so you should believe them. When they tell you who they are, believe them. Now, this is a piece from National Review, and it's entitled, "The DSA Wants to Abolish America." And again, it's from National Review, not exactly a conservative publication. But they say we should, in fact, be scared of who Megan Romer and her ilk are. Megan Romer is the young gal that was on with Shannon Bream on Fox News. And I'm going to play that video for you here in just a second. But she straight up says, these are the things that the Democratic Socialists of America believe. Now, I understand that it is considered déclassé to participate in what the self-consciously serious among us have termed as the Red Scare. But I'm here to tell you, my friends, that Joe McCarthy was right. There were communists in all places, in a lot of places in government. They were in the Screen Actors Guild. They were in your county government. They are in all of those places. And so, this whole Red Scare, really, that's a charge that was trumped up to persuade people, don't even listen to those people. It's not even true. They're just fanatics. They see communists everywhere. Well, now they've taken the masks off. And again, they've all told us who they are. Barack Obama did not lie. When he was running for office, he said that he was going to fundamentally transform this country. We should have taken him at his word. When the socialists tell you who they are, you should believe them. Go ahead and play the video, Ken. This is Shannon Bream and Megan Romer.
Okay, so we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform, and I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay, replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then let's go back through some of those then. Abolish the Senate. There are people who are...
Okay, so there you have it. Right out in the open, she tells you exactly who they are. And again, you should believe them. So when people that win large races, like the mayor of New York, we all thought, oh, well, that's New York. They do some crazy stuff there. But when he says stuff like this, we should absolutely
This new
believe
age
it.
will be defined by a competence and a compassion that have too long been placed at odds with one another. We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Sounds like Josh Jarrell.
Kind of sounds like Josh Jarrell, right?
Yeah.
All right. There's no problem too big or no concern too
government.
small.
Yeah, if government's big enough, we can fix anything.
That's right. Or this one.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Oh,
If
yeah.
our campaign...
Are you feeling warm, Ken? I mean,
I am feeling some warmth here.
yeah, maybe we should take it a step further.
No.
But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it is the end goal of ceasing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not.
Yeah, we don't leave any one issue for the other. We have to seize the means of production, Ken.
I'm still smarting over the get rid of rugged individualism. I mean, I grew up with John Wayne.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore because the socialists are going to give you the warmth of collectivism. Now, see, this is nothing new in America, but we tend to think that, well, this is just those wackos in New York. They don't. I mean, this isn't going to happen in Wyoming. Why? I mean, Wyoming is the cowboy state. Why? It's not possible for there to be any socialists here, except, of course, and before I go here, how did the Democrats take over Colorado? Well, when I was in college, Colorado was a lot like Wyoming, the early 2000s, just a lot more people. It was largely red, and you could pretty much count on it. Well, in short order, the Democrats flipped the state, and here's how they did it. They started with small local boards, and they didn't really care which board it was. It could be the board of the dump, the animal shelter. It could be the planning and zoning. That was actually a big one for them. But they didn't care, just so long as they got one of their people on one of those boards. And then in the next election, boards turns into city councils and mayorships. And then in the next election, so we're only 6 years past then. So 6 years, then it turns into the state legislature. And once you've owned that, you've pretty much got the whole bowl of wax. So this is from the Turkey Vulture. And it's entitled Marin Kallas. I think that's Kallas, Kallas, who knows, seeks Ward 1 council seat to represent Cheyenne's working class. Well, there's your first red flag. But yeah, working class. Down with the bourgeoisie. Here's what the Turkey Vulture says. Local artist, or called her Marin, is seeking the Ward 1 seat for Cheyenne City Council, saying she wants to bring the perspective of the working class residents to local government while pushing for greater transparency and strong oversight of large-scale developments. After earning an art degree from CSU, F the sheep, she worked as an artist and art educator before returning home to help run the family business. Since her family sold the Albany in 2021, she has operated her own art business while working part-time at Texas Roadhouse. Isn't it interesting that her family owned the Albany, the place where a lot of legislators hang out, and mostly the Redcoats? That's like their meeting spot in Cheyenne. Now, she has spent the past 6 years as a member of the Historic Cheyenne Incorporated, of which she is currently the vice president and has worked alongside the city on plans to rehabilitate the historic pump house. She also serves on the Arts and Aviation Steering Committee. I don't even know. Arts and Aviation, which is working to preserve the historic Cheyenne Airport, which I think is kind of a cool building.
It's origami and paper airplanes.
Yes, that's what they do. Yes, okay. Now, she says her status as a working class member of the community has convinced her that she could make a broader impact as a council member. Quote, running a government, running a city is a big thing. I have experience managing. I've been the general manager of the Albany for 6 years, so I understand having to make hard decisions. And so this next one is where you should really get a little bit concerned. The community, quoting now, the community is really concerned about it, and I share their concerns, she said. As a council member, I will be very, very pro-regulation and strict regulation at that. She said the city missed an opportunity to negotiate a community benefits agreement with the Microsoft data center. Oh, so in other words, businesses have to pay money to the county, to the city, just so that they can conduct business. Now, I thought that could have set a precedent for Cheyenne, and now we move forward working with these enormous hyperscale billionaire projects that are coming. In other words, take their money and give it to other people. She says, and tell me if this sounds familiar, Ken, I think listening, basically, is what the community needs to feel heard. And instead, I think they're being told that they're overreacting. That's the message that they're getting, even if they're not being blatantly told that. It's kind of patronizing to feel that way. I want to listen. How often do we hear politicians say that? Almost always on the other side of the aisle. I'm going to be listening. Listening is the most important. Well, I agree that it's important, but the other part is actually making a decision. You can't run a government like Julie Jarvis wants to and poll everybody. We don't live in a democracy.
I've said this many times. If you listen to the people, you will hear everything.
Yes, you will.
So listening to the people ultimately isn't going to tell you a lot. Now, I'm going to caveat that, for example, with the people at Bar None. There was an overwhelming majority there that needed to be listened to. But when you hear somebody say, listening to the people, your BS detector should be screaming.
It should be. And here's the thing, like you've spent a lot of time going door to door. I mean, I haven't quite kept up on it like I did the last election. But Ken is one of those candidates that he likes to do it himself. And, the Senate district is pretty big, so he can't cover the entire thing. But pretty much every evening, am I wrong? Pretty much every evening you're out knocking on doors?
Normally, and I will confess that I have not been able to be out near as much as I would like this particular session.
Well, you've had some family stuff going on.
Well, there's a lot of factors to that. But part of it is that I got 6,000 houses.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least I bet you could get half of them.
Well, I think, the bigger the race, the less, the people running for statewide office, they do some door-to-dooring in places, but that's not necessarily how you're going to win a statewide.
No, I mean, I think that's different.
Yeah, and this Senate position, we kind of got way down on the rabbit trail we didn't need to get to, but a Senate position is a kind of a mixed, it's adolescent.
All right, well, let's get back to the commie.
Let's do.
All right, here's what she says. We shouldn't be ignoring unhoused citizens. Okay, so unhoused citizens. I've heard that one reason why is, well, we don't want to make it comfortable for them, and because then they'll just stay. I just don't think that it should be a privilege to have dignity and have somewhere for them to use the restroom and have a wash station. I agree. Everybody probably needs a house, but that's your job.
So
that's not the government's
We're
job.
coming to the argument that I make that says if you take away someone's right to fail, you take away their right to succeed.
Oh, no, not according to this lady.
Yeah, if you we need to have a safety net, yes. But when you make that safety net too good, it becomes a hammock.
But see, they don't want it to be a safety net, Ken.
They want it to be a hammock.
They want it, or a bed, or bedroom, actually.
Yeah.
She says she represents artists, creatives, small business owners, and service workers. I'm solidly in the working class for sure. I just think that we need someone up on that dais that can represent a huge part of the taxpayer base in this community. It's great. We've got lawyers and doctors, but I do think we need someone who truly moves on the ground. Let me ask you a question. Ken, have you ever, well, you've been self-employed for a really long time, but you did work for a construction company. Was the owner of that construction company a poor person?
Sometime I should show you his house. No.
No. Have you ever worked for a poor person?
Yes.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. Diane and I had a business.
Okay, well, you work for yourself. Okay, whatever.
No, I get your point.
The point is, poor people generally don't employ other people, but that doesn't mean that they weren't poor, on their own. The truth is, most business owners fail at least a couple of times before they actually succeed. And some business owners, they hit it right, right from their first at bat, but sometimes it takes a couple of innings before you get a hit. And so, to assert that somebody who has been successful, a doctor or a lawyer or what have you, doesn't represent people is patently ridiculous. Just because you're successful doesn't mean that you don't understand what's going on the ground. What it means is you've figured it out.
Yeah, I would say I've dealt with a lot of very successful people. And invariably, they have a respect for other people that many, I don't want to use the word common, but many of us lack. And that is because they understand what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
And what it takes to be successful is to help other people be successful.
Now, I grew up in a small business, the Alabams, and I can tell you for a fact that when you own a business, really there are no days off. Okay, maybe you can get away for the weekend.
You're awake. Yeah, but when you come back, it's worse.
It's just worse than when you left. When growing up, and this is a fascinating story, I think, but the minimum wage, I think, was like $4.75 at the time. And then there was this great idea in Congress to raise the minimum wage. And my parents already gave consistent raises every year. Now, it wasn't a lot. Maybe it was a 10 cents an hour. Maybe it was a big raise was a quarter an hour. But we're talking, in the late 80s, early 90s, where, nobody was rich in the 80s. Well, maybe Donald Trump was, but most people didn't have a lot of money. But when the minimum wage went up, I distinctly remember my mom showing me the books and showing me the math that we could not make it with that many employees, and the minimum wage being raised. And so what did we do? We laid them all off, and all of us worked the business ourselves, which equated to no days off. Now, I can tell you, with my business, this thing, and there's never a day where this thing doesn't ring. With my wife's hair salon, there's never a day that she isn't doing something for that business. And so, being successful takes hard work. And you should want people that have been successful, that know what hard work means, that know what hard work looks like, to be the ones that are running things. Certainly, you don't want a poor person running your city. The same things that happened in their personal life are going to happen in your city.
You want somebody who has actually accomplished something
Sure.
and understands how success works.
Now, that's not to say that somebody who is down on their luck doesn't have something to contribute. I'm not saying that at all. However, the person running the place probably ought to have some experience. And
Well, you need vision, and unless somebody is successful, they generally don't have vision. I think that's one
Right.
of the things that makes a successful person. So,
no, and the example that I always use is the guy who started Fastenal. If you live in Wyoming, you probably know what that company is. They sell lots of things that fasten stuff together. But they didn't become a successful company by selling $100 bolts. They started out selling nickel bolts, and not the metal. Well, sometimes the metal, but the price. Sometimes 10-cent bolts. And if you wanted the really expensive one, maybe it was a 50-cent bolt. But they sold a heck of a lot of them. Now, it takes a pretty smart business person to build a successful empire on 10-cent bolts, but they were able to do it. The reason why businesses are successful is the person that runs it has figured out the laws of supply and demand. They have figured out how to operate within the free market. But when you have people that are generally speaking, opposed to the free market. And, I think that you can read the tea leaves in this article, that this gal running for city council in Cheyenne, she said all the right buzzwords, the working class, all of that language. You could, it's a pretty easy bet to say, yeah, she's got some pretty interesting beliefs. And when she says that she's for very, very strict regulation, believe her. Believe her, my friends, because that is what's going to happen. Nobody should be surprised when the guy who's about to win the presidency says, I'm going to fundamentally transform the United States of America. You should believe him because he's probably telling you the truth. Or when his wife says stuff like this, believe her.
And Barack knows that we are going to have to make sacrifices. We are going to have to change our conversation. We're going to have to change our traditions, our history. We're going to have to move into a different place as a nation to provide the kind of future that we all want desperately for our children. And he is the man to do it.
We're going to have to change our history and change our traditions. Now, what has happened, my friends? The 1619 Project by the New York Times attempted to say that this country was built entirely on slavery. How, before Barack Obama was elected, were there socialists? Yeah, but they were hiding out because they didn't want to be outed. Bernie Sanders was around, but he was about the only one that came out and said, I'm a socialist. Why? Because they wouldn't get elected. Well, here we are several years later, and there are people that are openly admitting that they're socialists. They're winning elections. One of them won an election just past our southern border. So to claim that this sort of thing is not happening in Wyoming is just hogwash. You need to be aware of what these people say. And when candidates show up on your door and they say crazy stuff, believe them.
Unless they're trying to tell you they're conservative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So again, but there's buzzwords there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm a conservative. I'm here to listen.
I'm a real conservative.
I'm a true conservative.
I'm a real conservative.
Yeah, like Marilyn Connolly. Oh, I'm trying to figure out what conservative is. Okay. Credit where credit is due, my friends. I often pound on the cow pie, but on occasion, not very often, but on occasion, they hit the nail on the head. And this is a column from Bill Sniffen. Bill Sniffen used to own the Cowboy State Daily until he sold it to B. Wayne Hughes. But he's got an opinion piece, and it's entitled "Don't Peak Too Soon." Love endorsements and polls. And here's what he writes. Trust me, folks, these are the craziest of political times. I love these times. These are the times where we get to comment on trends, predict outcomes, and pontificate on what's going on here in Wyoming. So, which way are the Wyoming political winds blowing? Boatloads of money are being spent on statewide political campaigns this year, and strategists are scratching their heads. When should a campaign peak? More on that later, he says. As a one-party state, all the action occurring is among the factions of the Republican Party. Is it possible that there might be 4 different factions? And then he goes through them. The Freedom Caucus, the Wyoming Caucus, I don't even know the rest of them, the state Republican Party leadership. And then folks are crossing over to the Republican Party, the Redcoats, the Democrats who are just crossing in. But the final piece in this is the more interesting one to me. Let's see here, and I just want to get to it. Here we go. Don't peak too soon. And he says, let me tell you about one of Wyoming's premier political minds, and I will add a good friend of mine. It belongs to Buffalo businessman John Jenkins. John, I hope you're listening this morning. He masterminded some of the state's greatest statewide campaigns during the 1970s and the 1980s. One of those campaigns saw 3-term Democratic Governor Ed Herschler score a tremendous comeback in 1978 and literally snatch the governorship away from his GOP opponent, John Ostland of Gillette. As an editor, I couldn't resist writing a column in my Lander newspaper back then in which I applauded Jenkins' effort but mildly criticized him for peaking a week too early. Jenkins took some friendly umbrage at my comments and said in the most Jenkins way possible, well, Bill, I would rather peak a week too early than a week too late. Sound political advice. Now, when one of his clients, that is Malcolm Wallop, was kind of down in the polls, and we have here in Sheridan, the airport is named after Malcolm Wallop, pretty good Wyoming senator, but he was down in the polls, and Jenkins told me that he and a friend of his were sitting in the Mint Bar one night, and they decided they would sketch out an ad. And at that time, OSHA was coming out with a lot of regulations. That was the big thing. We have to have workplace safety. And so Jenkins crafted this ad, and this one is probably it is most definitely one of the classics in Wyoming political history. Play it.
Every Everywhere you look these days, the federal government is there, telling you what they think, telling you what they think you ought to think, telling you how you ought to do things, setting up rules you can't follow. I think the federal government is going too far. Now they say, if you don't take the portable facility along with you on a roundup, you can't go. We need someone to tell them about Wyoming. Malcolm Wallop will.
The porta potty on a horse. That ad has been referred to by just about every publication that you can think of, and think about it, Ken. Sitting at the Mint Bar trying to figure out which way they're going to go, and they come up with the porta potty tied to the horse. I mean, a classic. John, you need to call me one of these days. Let's go have a cup of coffee or a fake beer. But the other point I wanted to make is that ad propelled Malcolm Wallop way up in the polls. One, because it's funny, but secondly, because it was true that there were a lot of people that were trying to push OSHA regulations, that were saying we had to have workplace safety, and they just went too far. But I think the other point to it is that the ad, while it was criticizing Malcolm Wallop's opponent, you notice that it didn't name him. You notice that it wasn't one of these crazy, outrageous political ads. It wasn't an attack ad that we see over and over and over every night. And so one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is you can make an argument against your opponent without being just truly nasty. And I won't mention any names here, but Reed Reisner. That guy, I mean, he is once again going to do something that no other Wyoming politician could possibly ever do. Unite the entire state against him. I don't know of anybody else that's been able to do that, but Reed is about to do it. All right, my friends, let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Brent Bean, find out what's going on in his campaign. Mr. Bean, coming up next. The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Oh, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell.
Iceland. France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only
Cowboy State Politics is only getting stronger. This program is only continuing to expand faster than Reed Reisner's polling numbers, that's for sure. Of course, I mean, what isn't expanding faster than Reed Reisner's polling numbers? Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And if you paid attention to our social media yesterday, the podcast hit 430,000 downloads. And, I have to tell you, the article that did it, oh, my friends, this is beautiful. Here, I'll show it to you. Let's see here. So the article that pushed it over the edge was the Sheridan Press article. Sheridan Media, Sheridan Press refused to publish important election information. That one did it. I talked about that on the podcast. And then the other one was the Micah Sturdivant episode. Thank you, Micah, for pushing my podcast past 430,000 downloads. Keep it up, lady. You're doing great.
What's significant about 430, though? That's what I didn't get.
Well, it's a nice round number, and we hadn't celebrated for a while, and it's way bigger than any other podcast. So, I mean, hey, if you're not going to toot your own horn, nobody else will, right? All right, come on, Ken, you know that. All right, so Brent, you're in the studio. What's happening, man? What are we talking about?
Congrats, Dave.
Thanks.
430, that's a good number. No, I appreciate letting me come on here. It has definitely been a whirlwind here, and on the road. I haven't been home, I guess home in Cody since the 3rd of July, or actually the morning of the 4th, and I don't anticipate being back there until sometime later this month.
Okay, all right. So how's the campaign going?
It's going well. It's going well. I think I'm still seeing that the primary concerns of the folks out there kind of revolve around three things, and that's government encroachment into people's lives. That's whether it's federal, state, local. It's overtaxation, and just the lack of trust at all levels of government.
Well, and I think that's probably one of the bigger ones.
It is.
And part of that is aided definitely by social media and the internet. I mean, people are so much more informed than definitely 6 years ago. When I started the show, I'm like, nothing turns my crank more than when I see, somebody like us. Well, maybe not Ken, he's elected, but just a normal guy, and or gal, and they've discovered something about one of their representatives, and then they write an article about it, and then they've got the documents, and then they've got the voting record. I mean, that really gets me excited, because it means that people are paying attention, and they should be.
Well, they should be, absolutely. And I've made a conscious effort over the last year to keep this about issues, to keep it about voting records, and that we would not attack anybody personally, or at least initiate any personal besmirchment.
You bring up voting records, it gets really personal in a hurry. That's an attack.
Well,
we've seen that.
Yeah, ask Marilyn Connolly.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
That's right. That's right. And, my whole platform has been very anti-establishment. That's very much a threat to local, state, national, and global interests. And, Wyoming, as you know, as a target, we're a prime target because of our low population, because of our mass expanse, and primarily because of all the minerals that are sitting underneath our feet right now. They want that. And we know, there's been a few false narratives run, and they continue. We had one that popped last week, and about certain things people were following on our social media, and of course we posted all of that. This actually came from an international source.
Yeah, the Daily Mail.
Yeah. So it came from an international source. We disputed it right away. I happened to catch it when I was between Rollins and Rock Springs on the way over to the Red Desert Roundup, which was great. It was a great parade, by the way. And we know more is coming in all likelihood. And so we got several people running our social media, and it's just like, what in the world are these people talking about?
So what happened? What's the truth? Was it just some random porn bots following your campaign, or what? What really happened there?
Yeah, well, I don't know. What we do know is that the picture that was posted with myself and my wife, we can't find that picture with anybody that was associated that we were apparently following. And then, so
wait a minute. That picture was AI? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know if it was AI or not. All
Okay.
I know is that we couldn't find that picture. And then we looked up, there were a lot of suppositions in there on X, TikTok, all of them. that and you know, like I say, we've got several folks who run on these. I'm not going to name their names by any means, but very trustworthy people. And you know, just based on the name, I think one was like a little bunny girl or something like this. And this happened to be a middle-aged gal. You know, but the supposition was there that it was an underage person, I guess, or something. And and so it's one of those things that you know, I take very personally, particularly when they bring my family into it. And that's where I draw the line. I mean, I've been called just about everything in my prior life, you know, and so a lot of this doesn't bother me, but I do not like when these things get out or when it's published the way it came out, simply because you know, this would never happen if we were behind in the polls.
No.
It would never happen. So we went right away. We posted all of our forensics that we had, or whatever you want to call it, who we were actually following. And we threw that out on Facebook right away saying, hey, here's the deal. I posted a video actually from the park there in Rock Springs, of all things. And then said, hey, you know, we're looking into all this. We have an idea where it's coming from. And I'm not going to presuppose anything right now or share that.
So,
but,
all right. So were these porn accounts like actually following the campaign? Was your campaign following them? Let's start there. Is the story true?
No.
Okay.
No.
We totally made up.
Yeah, as far as we know, it's completely made up. Yeah.
Well, and it's
Completely
funny, you know,
yeah.
nobody really trusts the Daily Mail unless it's an election. I mean, they really are kind of like a step above the National Enquirer or the Weekly World News.
Yeah, at
and
best.
I mean, they're the entertainment smut magazine or website.
That's right.
But it's interesting that they go to a British outlet to launch an attack against you.
Well, and that in itself, I think, shows how big this is. And you know, I've been warned for the last 9 months to a year, particularly starting about 9 months ago, that hey, you better watch it.
Better watch it. Hey, you watch
yeah,
it, Colonel.
and it's one of those things. Not and these are from folks that you know I know or I know loosely or something like that. Not threats by any means, because you know I know my stance on AI, my stance on taxes, my stance on returning this state to the people is very is in opposition to globalist interests, and
well, you're definitely upsetting the apple cart.
Well, it is, and the thing is it's almost like a revival of conservatives around the state. And, you know, that's the one thing I'd like to say to all those conservatives around there is, you know, this can't be about me. You know, this is about, and I'm not talking the news article, I'm talking this whole movement. It can't be. It's got to be about all of us. We've got to all see this for what it is. And that, you know, we've got one shot here in 2026 to really change it. And I think that as we devolve, both nationally and in the state, that we have to have the courage to stand up and do it. But it is, you know, I was told a while back is that, hey, this is not a fight against multi-billion-dollar industries. This is a fight against trillion-dollar stuff here, and which endless pockets, as you know.
Right.
And you know, another thing too is you know, a while back I had was introduced to some folks, I guess, that you know, and this is what they do, and they asked if I wanted help. And I said, absolutely not. I don't do business that way. And but they have a track record of doing these kind of things. And,
right, like crisis management type stuff, or
smears.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. And I said, no, I don't do business that way. And and I've been very frank with my inner core. You know, what people do outside is what they do. You know, I have no control over what they say. But the people who are helping, and of course, it's an all-volunteer campaign.
Sure.
But I have made it very clear that now we stick to the issues. I want people, because that's what the people want to know, is what are the issues? Let's define the problem. Let's frame the problem. And hey, by the way, these are some courses of action. There's some solutions on how to fix this stuff. And this is what I plan on doing. And it really does come down to having the will to do it.
Well, one thing that I find interesting is that first that they went to a foreign paper, but this is all that it is, you know. And I think most people look at can see that article for what it is. I mean, I read it.
Yeah,
it was pure trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, if you sit down and you create a stack of stuff every morning, you read, you know, you get a pretty good bead on what's true and what's not. And sometimes, you know, even in trashy articles, you'll find like a little kernel of truth. Okay, well, here's where they're going, and maybe this one part is true, but the rest of it is total bullcrap. Not that one.
Yeah.
No, that one, I mean, it was a straight up smear.
Well, and
in my
you know,
opinion.
yeah, they made the comment that I think in there that they had tried to contact my daughters and whoever else, and I'm like, they never got a call from anybody,
Of
So
course.
and this is, and regrettably, my daughters have they've looked at their accounts, their own personal stuff, and they've taken down a lot of stuff just to make sure it doesn't get. And they shouldn't have to do that.
No.
Of course, they're just my daughters. So but it's just one of those things. I don't like. Obviously, the personal besmirchment's huge, but when you come after my family, I take that very, very personally. And
Well,
I just don't
think
do
we
that.
all should.
Yeah, we should, and that's where I draw the line there.
There's a
for sure.
troll that lives down there in Buffalo that we all know her, but she's going after my wife in her salon. Frankly, I think the person is irrelevant, but I was talking to Christine yesterday, and she says, "Why is she going after my salon?" And I was like, "Well, because you were my wife."
Right.
But that's where, and I want to say, I think we all want to say, man, this is where politics has got to. The truth is, this is always.
It's always been
politics.
this way. It's always been this way. It's unfortunate because what it does is it dissuades people from running.
Oh yeah.
And it really enables the establishment to keep going, and people are. I mean, I talk to people all over the state all the time that they are afraid to say anything because of what could happen, whether it's to their business, to their family, to them,
Sure.
Whatever it is, and that's really a shame to see that all the way across the board.
Well, and Ken can tell you, like if you start, rocking the boat too much, then they will dig through everything about you, and they'll find something from 25 years ago,
That's right.
and it'll be on the front page of the paper, right, Ken?
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Wildfile. As a thank you, Wildfile. So we came out with a slate. People are always calling us. Who should I vote for? I really don't know some of these people. You're on the inside. Everybody gets that. And we came out with a slate. We published it, and had some extra copies of it. And what are we going to do with all these copies? And it was suggested, well, take them around and maybe businesses will set them on their counter.
Yeah. No, probably not.
Probably not. A lot of issues there, but it is really sad that the pressure is so heavy to anybody. The old story about the crabs in a bucket. You put one in the bucket and you'll crawl out, and you put two in the bucket and they'll keep pulling them back down. That's kind of how this works, because as soon as somebody raises their head above the crowd, the whack-a-mole game starts, and nobody wants to stick their head up anymore. And I don't blame them.
Well,
they don't.
When I initially saw this story, what I immediately thought was, okay, let's go look at my own social media.
Yeah.
And often, like every day, there are friend requests. And honestly, like I open the profile, I go look through it. Okay, so yeah, there's friends, people I know on there. Okay, some of these posts are legitimate. All right, probably okay. But every once in a while, there's one of them that I miss. Or that I misgauge, maybe I'm busy or whatever. Okay, confirm. And then I have to go look later, and I find out, here's a porn bot, and delete, or what is it, unfriend or whatever.
Right.
And so, I can see how that could easily happen. But
Without a doubt.
But there again, you're not in control of who follows you, and
right.
There was another piece that was done on Gabe Saint. And I think his was a little bit more egregious because there was some actual comments that he had written. But the guy went through like every single post that Gabe ever put up on X. And the article ended up being like 12 or 13 pages long. Well, that's the world that we live in. That, if somebody is opposed to you politically, they're going to dig through every piece of your life and try to find something that they think might dissuade people from voting for you.
That's
All
right.
I got to say is, thank God there were not these things when I was in college. Just saying.
I'm just waiting for whatever is going to come out for me.
Yeah, isn't it? It's a shame too, and but you're right. We've since gone in there, and it's like, and we've pretty much gotten rid of all anybody worth following, I think. But you're right. I mean, and it's easy too on some of these things to fat finger it, whatever, you hit something, whatever the deal is, and next thing you know, whether you're following them or they're whatever the deal is. But we did a lot of, we've got several folks that are working our social media, and it's like, okay, let's look at everything here, and then just over I just finally said, okay, we're not going to follow anybody.
Right.
We're not going to follow anybody. Just get rid of everybody. And it's a shame because there's some good people in there too, but I'm just like, let's just not. So that's where we are right now.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, so where do you think the campaign's at?
I think what I've seen of all things is donations have increased of all things.
Okay, that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, it is. But
by the way, let's talk about upping your advertising.
Okay. All right.
But no, that's a really good sign when you get more people donating to your campaign. Now, are we talking small dollar donations or are we talking big dollar donations?
Small,
Okay.
and more small.
Oh,
and
big
I
dollar.
want to remind folks out there too is that you always hear the term grassroots. We hear it all over the nation all the time, and I really wanted this campaign to absolutely be that way. We kind of talked about this before, and it has to be about Wyoming and only Wyoming. Now, I have a family that live outside the state. I've got some guys I served with in the past that lived outside the state that may flip me a few bucks. But and then there is a pack, friends of Brent being in the state. I don't know what the balance is, but it's all Wyoming, right?
Right.
And then that, and then of course, we've talked about not soliciting endorsements, those kind of things. Because it has to be about the people. It has to be. And the way I've looked at it is if it's going to happen, it's going to. If it's not, it's not. And I've said it a million times. Well, I shouldn't say a million times, but in jest, that I do this job pro bono. And of course, it drives my wife nuts because I'm just a military retiree. But it's just to say no and make it count. And a no to all these things that are tearing down our state. And I will tell you this: the one thing that I have seen around the state is there's kind of been a change, from roughly about a year ago to where people were kind of disheartened, and to kind of where we are now, where and there's certain levels, certain times when people get more and more involved naturally, but we can't win. We can't. Our rightful spot is number one in this nation, and everything that's good, whether it's on a per capita basis or not. But we'll never be able to get there if we don't believe it first.
Right.
We have to believe how great we are, and that's really why I focus so much on the trust thing. Is that if there's a way to gain, and it's earned really is what it is. Just whatever level of trust from the people, then we'll go.
Okay, so let me ask you this: since we talked, the Barlow campaign has released a poll.
Yeah.
And they say they're up like gigantic numbers. What do you make of that poll?
Well, we could release a poll very similar.
All you got to do is type it out, right?
Right.
I'm just kidding.
That's right. But no, I mean, we don't. We aren't polling simply because of finances. But there's entities that are, and there's some pretty objective polls, from my understanding, that are out there. And again, I don't think any of this stuff would be happening if we were what Barlow's numbers showed. I will say, that there was a narrative that was running around that I was gay. Another narrative.
What?
Another narrative running around that I was an out-of-stater living in Jackson, multimillionaire or whatever. And so, I mean, these things,
I mean, you do live in Cody, so.
It's close, but I still have a house here. But that I've been, as remodeling for the last 6 years. So Lord knows if it'll ever get done.
Well, you have to work on it for more than 5 minutes at a time, Brent.
That's right. That's right.
Well, when you need a professional.
That's right.
That's back
to
to
you got all that money now.
Yeah. So let's talk
about
about some advertising. So my problem with the poll is you can make polls say anything that you want.
Yeah.
For example, Nancy Case. He probably still is touting this poll, but he says the majority of people in Wyoming support Medicaid expansion. Well, the poll that he's relying on was only 500 people, and they didn't release any demographics with it. And so 500, and I don't remember the percentage number, but we could divide the number of people that Barlow polled by 580,000, and it's a really, really, really small number. And there were no demographics released with it either, which I think that part right there is pretty telling. I mean, we are talking about the campaign, and I know, this is politics, and sometimes it gets a little dirty, but he is the guy that made his own platform survey and said that he follows the platform 100% of the time. So we know that he's not above having a really loose relationship with the truth.
Yeah, polls, especially at this point, polls aren't about how it really is.
No.
Polls are designed to shape opinion, and
Well,
that's
that's right.
all that they're trying to do.
And the only poll that matters is 18 August. I mean,
Yes.
that's the one that really only
Yeah,
matters.
and it's interesting because at the beginning of, I would say maybe beginning of June, the lovely Christine was inundated with polls, on her phone. I don't get them because of I'm me, but and that's a funny thing, right? As if I'm not going to see them.
Yeah.
As if somebody's not going to send me screenshots of everything. But anyway, beginning of June, totally inundated. It was like one a night, and now pretty much nothing at all. I mean, I think last week I got a poll from David Giroult. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not worth my time.
Yeah. Well, and that's right. And that's why I don't take a lot of stock in any of them, because you really have to look at the statistical significance of these polls. And you mentioned the demographics, you mentioned the sample size, you mentioned all of those things, and that's where they get their credibility right there.
How are the questions phrased? Is
Yeah.
another really big one.
Well, what
that's
about
right.
the Josh
That's right.
Durrell poll?
Oh,
That stupid thing. So Wyoming Business Council does a poll, and every question was, do you think Wyoming's economy is great, or is it in the crapper?
Yeah.
Is the Wyoming Business Council doing awesome, or is Wyoming's business economy in the crapper? And then it just kind of goes off the rails from there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. You're doing a lot of events. You're traveling all the time. I mean, it's like, I know you must have Scotty transport you from one place to another, or it looks that way. So what about your crowd size? Are you getting bigger crowds everywhere you go?
There seem to be, more people participating, getting involved. I've met a lot of new people, which is great. So we're getting away from the echo chambers, excuse me. And now what I did know is that once everybody registered by the end of May, that we'd be relegated to the forums, the debates, everything else. So
Sure.
you'd have to be hopscotching all over the state just to try to hit all those. So, prior to that, the months leading up to that, I was trying to hit all those communities that I likely wouldn't be able to hit. And these are the small towns, these are the Bear Oil, the Elk Mountain,
Right.
some of these
Aladdin.
Aladdin, and so I'm really glad, excuse me, that I was able to do that. But now a lot of it is, going to where the events are. I will tell you that a lot of these forums, when I walk into them, these people aren't going to vote for me anyway.
Right.
But
it's all stacked.
it's behind the camera. That what I'm really, the people that I'm really talking to, and because they are. I mean, I think one of the only forums I've been to that was at least nonpartisan was Wyoming Family Alliance. Just about everything
that
else
was fair enough.
Yeah, it just and it was a fair one. And I'm getting better naturally at things. I've always and we've talked about this before. I've always been aligned. Whatever the question is, you just answer the question, and that's it. And so I'm getting putting more substance in there on why. But it is. We had a forum here recently where here in Sheridan, where you're responsive for 45 seconds. Well, shoot, you can't say anything in 45 seconds.
Explain the problems with the Wyoming economy. You have 30 seconds.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you can't do that in that short amount of time.
The problem is the Chamber of Communists. There you go.
That's right. That's right. But there has been a concerted effort that we saw about a year ago to keep this campaign, my name, out of the paper, out of the news media, and we saw that.
It's still going on.
It is still going on, and it's really, whether this is concerted, whether it's orchestrated, whatever it is, statewide, I don't know, but it sure appears to be that way, and it's the people who lose here,
Right.
But it is that trying to protect the sanctity of the establishment.
So, speaking of polling, Patrick wants to know: is there have you seen any legitimate polling of the governor's race? Now, I don't know what legitimate means, but have you seen anything that, in Brent's opinion, yeah, okay, this is a legitimate poll?
I haven't personally.
Okay.
I've been informed by some of the folks who have some privy to that, but I have not personally seen it.
Well, and here's another thing that I think that's fascinating. Generally speaking, if a race is competitive, that you will see there'll be lots of polling done. Now, I understand it's Wyoming and there's only 580,000 people here, but I think it's fascinating that you haven't seen any polling come out that is, by any, like, I don't know, McLaughlin and Associates, any of the big polling names, but we haven't seen any of that come out. And the only one that has been released is the one I referred to earlier. I think that tells you something in and of itself, that maybe there's some folks that don't want the polling numbers to be out there. Now, maybe you could say I've put on my tinfoil hat, but I think that's a pretty good conclusion.
I think there's another factor, and I've mentioned this before, is I don't ever answer any poll anytime, anywhere. And I think there are a lot of people like me, they don't have time for that crap,
Yeah.
And I suspect that a lot of them are just like me. They're pulling for you.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the two hardest states to poll are Wyoming and Alaska. And typically people, you move to Alaska, that's a lifestyle change. I mean,
Sure.
you're actually doing something. You move to Wyoming and you're trying to get away from the other 48 or 47 or whatever it is. And it kind of is a lifestyle change, but it's still within reason when it comes down to actually moving. But people typically move here to get away from all that.
Right.
And so they don't, it's really interesting the way it works across the state. People just don't,
Well, it's, again, I don't think that polling is all that accurate. How many polls said that Donald Trump was going to get trounced by Hillary Clinton, was going to get trounced by Kamala Harris, was not in any way going to get anywhere close to the Oval Office. And here we are in a race, a three-way race, which, I don't know, I might argue that it's only a two-way race, but anyway.
If you drive across the state and you judge by signs, it's a two-way race.
Yeah. And that's another fascinating thing, Brent. Like, I've done a lot of traveling the last few weeks, and the places where you see Eric signs, it's obvious that it's a pretty wealthy individual. Nice brand new fences, they're all painted. There isn't like four brace posts on a corner where, the guy that owns it knows you can't dig a post hole there. It's all really nice places. And then you go down the road a little bit, and I think I mentioned this to you earlier, and I'm referring to a place between Worland and Thermop. There's this guy, and his front yard, he's got all of his worldly possessions out there in the front yard. And he's obviously proud of them because, they're taking up his whole front yard. Yeah. And leaned up against this old truck that probably hasn't run in 30 years is a gigantic Brent Bean sign. And you go down the road a little bit on the other side of the road, there's another, place with nice fences, and it's all manicured, and there's a Barlow sign. You go down a little bit further, and this guy's got an old tractor, and it's holding up a Brent Bean sign. So yeah. I think that's telling. Of course, all that's anecdotal, and I think the long and the short of all this is we really don't know.
Oh, we don't know, and it really should be left up to the people. Ultimately in the end. And that's why I say the 18th of August is the only poll that matters.
Fair enough. All right, Brent. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Sure. They can come up brentbn.com. We've got all of our social media platforms on there. And of course, they can always send me an email. They can call, text, whatever the deal is. And again, we have a very skeleton crew, so I'll get back to folks as soon as I can. And a lot of the times, I'll just call them up, and say, okay, so what are you thinking, and if they have a question. So, but that's the best way to do it. And of course, this afternoon we'll be down here at the Kendrick Park. I think it's starting at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, yeah. Kendrick Park. If you're in Sheridan, go see Brent and ask him the difficult questions.
I got invited to that too. So if you want to ask me a question and nobody can get to Brent, why come talk to me?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I might be busy. Maybe I have no idea.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Just very quickly, I think two issues that are really bringing up kind of
Hey, you know
coming
what?
to the surface.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
and when we come back, we'll talk about those two issues.
You bet.
Hit it, Ken.
Hit what?
Yeah, we're going to take a break. Are you sick to death of being told what to think? Maybe you don't even realize that it's happening. Freedom Caucus bad, big spending, big government, liberal, Republican good. Conservatives are bad and they want to starve little children. I have heard it all, my friends. We are way past the time when the news was just the news, if it ever was. But wouldn't it be nice if you had a news platform that was at least honest about what they were telling you? News on the news page, opinion on the opinion page. That's exactly what the Open Range Record is. Go to the website, openrangerecord.com. News, analysis, opinion, and investigative journalism. One more time, that website is openrangerecord.com. You can listen and watch Cowboy State Politics live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and on Rumble every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pay attention to all that other block-headed, Borg-like so-called news if you want. But if you want to get the real story, watch Cowboy State Politics live. And now, back to the program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm your host, David Iverson, the big voice on the right. Welcome back to the show. We've been talking with Brent Bien, who's going to be Wyoming's next governor if he has his way. So, Brent, before the break, you mentioned that there were two big issues that you think are important. What are they?
Well, I think what I'm starting to see around the state, and it's probably three to be honest with you, to be fair. I think is taxation,
okay,
AI, and water. Those seem to be the predominant issues around the state. And boy, I tell you what, it's the taxation. There's a huge push to get people not to vote for the ballot initiative. That of course.
Of course, they don't want that.
Oh, they don't want it, and so and I'm going at it with elected officials all the time on hey, these are the numbers, and we have to be financially responsible. We have to be more frugal because the spending spree that we're on is completely untenable. We see that at the national level also, and then of course AI, when these hyperscale data centers, people are and rightly so, because people don't know what's going on with this, and the people it is consent of the governed, it is, and so the people have to be brought into the loop on this, and of course that's why I've taken such a strong stand on this thing, and then of course water, this drought we're in, this has been going on for a long time, and I, of the 7 compacts and the 3 decrees that we have, I will never agree to release any more water out of the state of Wyoming than we originally agreed to. Just won't do it. But this is one reason why I will declare agriculture as critical infrastructure as soon as I get down there, because without these guys, we don't eat. We really have to get back to our state seal, and that built this state. That's the livestock, the grain, the mining, and the oil.
Well, so agriculture, just a couple of what I think are pretty telling statistics. Like as a percentage of GDP, agriculture ranks below the media in Wyoming. I mean, the media is like number 7, I think, and agriculture is number 9. And then over the last, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, the economic contribution of agriculture, and I realize that's a big broad subject, but it has actually declined about 22%.
It has.
And people got to eat, man.
Oh, well, they have to eat. And that's the thing. You know, when you break Wyoming down with land, if you look at all the unappropriated land under federal management, which is BLM or whatever, you add that to the reservation, about 2+ million acres, state lands, about 3 million acres, somewhere in there. All of a sudden, you're at 50+%. And then you look at what's railroad and corporate, which is about 36-38%. A lot of that railroad land's been sold off corporately. And so now you get down to what's actually privately held, and I mean, you're talking 12-14%.
Yeah, it's a pretty small number.
It's a very small number, and this is why when I talk agriculture, you know, I want to look at ad valorem taxes. I want to look at depreciation, at all the licensing fees, all of these things to somehow get the boot of government off their neck. And this is one reason why I want to put a moratorium on the fuel tax as soon as I get in there, because we've got to bring fuel taxes down primarily for them, because as you know, the nation runs on diesel, and our ag runs on diesel, and I know these guys get certain exemptions, but you know, it's got to be easier for them. We've got to make AUMs, you know, getting these leases easier for these guys, particularly a state, you know, also. And to really push back on and put FLTMA, the Federal Lands Management and Planning Act, back in the box, because, you know, every NGO nonprofit can sue at the drop of a hat or shut something down. And you know, and there's some other issues out there that nobody's really talking about, and you know, we've got theft out there, whether it's cattle or sheep, you know, and I want to make sure that if this is, you know, that these things are addressed, you know, out there, because you know, this built the state. I mean, like you said, since 2019, it's down 22%. And
if you want some really interesting reading, go to the Wyoming Livestock Board and look at the missing livestock report.
Yeah.
I mean, it is amazing how much.
That's right.
How many head of cattle and sheep and horses and whatnot show up missing in this state. I mean, it's
right.
a rabbit hole. I'll warn you right now.
Yeah.
I want to go back to one of the things that you said. Okay, so you've taken a pretty strong stance against data centers.
Yeah.
And the charge is that I've seen online is Brent Bean is anti-business. So how do you square your stance on data centers and supporting business?
I'm pro free market is what I am. You know, being a pro business guy, you know, that kind of, and it depends on, this is connoted, you know, differently, right? Because I do not like state-run capitalism. That's where we are. That's why I want the repeal of HB 88 from 2010, which gave these hyperscale, really all data centers, but particularly the hyperscales, what we're talking about, huge sales tax cut breaks. Well, you're not getting it. You know, these small private businesses around the state are not getting that. And so that's way in the scale, you know, and that's where I, you know, in favor of this. And I don't like that. That's not, you know, I'm a free market guy. And so it's a matter of cutting taxes, deregulating, setting the conditions to where anybody who wants to come in here, hey, you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. But it should be fair across the board. It should be objective.
So is it fair to say that and this is my argument, that if a data center, if Ken, not that he would, but you know, I don't even know if Ken knows what inside a data center, but if he did, he says, Governor Brent, I want to set up this data center. And he says, I've jumped through all the hoops. I've got all my permits in order. You know, I've bought water off of water rights from this person down the way, and everything is in order. Should Ken be able to set up his data center?
Well, yeah. I think the other thing too is there's got to be a public comment in there, right?
Okay.
And you know, one of my concerns here is when I look at these, and this is why there has to be more standardization across the board in DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, right? So we need to be able to sit there and say, okay, what are the environmental impacts?
Okay.
And the state, regionally, and locally per project. What are the impacts to water? Because it's not just.
But all his permits are in order.
Yeah, no, I got it. But you know, this is all part of the whole, you know, fourth industrial revolution that kind of started between 2005, 2006, and it's growing so exponentially. This is one reason why some of the big banks are pulling out of this stuff, because they know it's not a sound investment, because in the next 3 to 5 years, shoot, they're going to have to completely redo all these
Right.
things. And I want the bonding paid up front, because I don't want the taxpayers paying for this stuff, like we did here with all the gas wells. And I think it's one of those things is but above everything, and I can't even believe I forgot this, above everything, there has to be a box put around AI before we lose our constitutional liberties if we haven't already. There has to be. Our legislators got to do it to make sure that data is not being sold. It's kind of like the flock cameras. There's so much you can get off somebody's license plate, facial recognition, and everything. And where's that data going? Who's selling that data?
Okay.
I don't want that.
All right. So I want to go back to the data centers. Okay. And I just want to be clear and have this discussion with you. What is the difference between Ken's data center and I don't know, my wife's salon? I mean, we could argue that my wife's salon uses some pretty nasty chemicals. She doesn't, but it could. That there's some environmental impacts on there. What is the difference between that data center, if he's above board and everything, on the equal playing field and all that? What's the difference between that business and a salon or a sporting goods store or a rifle company up the hill? What is philosophically? What is the difference there?
So if all restrictions constitutionally,
we're good. We're all met, man. We're playing by the
well,
rules.
there's not.
Okay, that's the answer I was driving.
There's
at.
not.
There isn't. There isn't a difference. And I think this data center thing, it's like the difference between a low boil and a high boil on the stove, right? That line is actually pretty fine. And so to have a discussion about business, and being a free market guy, I think it very easily tips into, crazy town, where nobody's really listening to any reason at all. But I'm happy to hear that if everything's on an equal playing field, then sure, Ken, set up your data center.
I think we have to be careful with attacking data centers on the idea that what are they used to store, because if you take a step back and you look at that, that's the same argument they use against firearm industry.
Yeah.
Those firearms are used to kill people, therefore they're a bad industry.
Yeah, see, I don't like that argument.
And we want to jump to the deal that says these data centers are just there to store all this stuff, therefore they're bad. That's the same wrong thinking, and we see it coming out on our side quite often.
I know.
Data center bad. Firearm bad. There's no difference.
But you're right. I think that's an excellent point. That is the same argument.
That is. That's right. And like I say, it's got to be an even playing field. I look at these things, as objectively as I can when it comes down to some of those other things we already mentioned. But 1, what's the requirement? 2, what's the purpose? And 3, what's the return on investment? Sure. And that's more of a SLIB thing, right? And state land investment board. What are we going to get back if we're going to put on these things on state land or whatever it is on state land? I'm going to look at it regardless of what it is. I say the same thing about wind turbines. You know what we're going to end up with, don't you? Is a bunch of pickleball courts.
No, we are not.
Because when these places collapse and they go back to the people, because now we're going to build the data centers in space where we don't need the water.
Yeah.
And we got to come up with something. I actually saw in an article that, I don't remember who it was, like Elon Musk or somebody said that's what a lot of these things are going to be, as pickleball courts.
Well, and actually, it's interesting you bring that up, Ken, because I've got a piece in the stack here. And this one it seems like a lot of the dead internet has actually come true. It's a piece out of this outlet called Futurism. But what they're saying is a lot of the activity that you see online is all agenic AI. That really, a big chunk of what happens on the internet, a lot of website traffic, is really AI. And so I liked your comment when you said, look, we got to get AI in the box somehow, which I don't know that that's entirely possible, by the way.
I don't know if it is either. But, here in the state, when it comes down to permitting, when it goes through the Industrial Siting Council, the DEQ, all of these things. And this is why, I'm such a stickler on standardization. It has to be, regardless of industry, it has to be the same. You have to check all these, blocks. And anything that requires public comment, that has to be taken very, very seriously. I've been involved in environmental impact studies in multiple states around the nation and some of our islands. And I tell you, I would take those very, very seriously. on what the public actually is saying about it, if they have valid concerns or not. There's a lot of emotion that runs in these public comments.
Well, and I think there's another issue that some things require public comment, others do not.
That's right. That's right.
If I want to set up another salon down the street, that's not up for public comment.
That's right.
If I'm willing to put the money out to build another business, and I want to hire the people, and I've jumped through all the hoops, there is no public comment on there.
Right.
And so, it's not, but there's, again, and this is another fine line, like Radiant in Evansville.
And Bar None.
Excuse me. Yeah. So they had a big public meeting, and the public said, no, we don't want this. And it wasn't that there was actually public comment on it. I think there probably should have been. But it was the community that said, no, we don't want this. Yeah. The Budweiser plant that I've mentioned a lot, that's down in front of Fort Collins, that was going to be here in Wyoming.
That's right.
And community said no.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that we've got to get everybody on the same level playing field, and that everybody's playing by the same rules. And like you said, it needs to be standard, right?
It does.
You've got to do your environmental impact study if it's required. If there's public comment required, you got to do that. But if it's not, hey man, we're open for business.
Well, that's right. That's the free market right there. You're absolutely right. And yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, Dave.
All right, Brent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
You bet. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it.
We got to run, but keep me updated, and let's talk about these advertising rates since you're getting so many campaign contributions. All right, Ken, let's go.
Not so many, but they're increasing a little bit.
Let's take another break, and when we come back, we'll finish up the show. The following ad was paid for by Brent Bien for governor.
This is Brent Bien, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bien for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live, moving through a Wednesday. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything you do for Cowboy State Politics. During the break, I was watching the monitor in the studio, and Anthony Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment 111 times this morning. In fact, before I left to come down here to the studio, he was asked a question, Dr. Fauci, do you see that paper sitting in front of you? And he invoked his Fifth Amendment right on that. And Rand Paul goes, please note it in the record that he refused to answer whether or not he can see a piece of paper in front of him. Now, according to the Constitution, invoking your Fifth Amendment rights cannot be held. You can't be held. That can't be held against you. But when you invoke it 111 times, what are we supposed to think, right? That you can't answer a single question. You can't even say whether or not there's a piece of paper in front of you. I think that in and of itself is pretty telling. And I'm still very surprised at how raw a lot of people are about COVID. Most people have not forgotten what that did to their families, what it did to their businesses, what it did to their kids, schools. That's still a really big issue. And I mean, if you're watching Fox News today, or pretty much, any news program, you're going to hear, if you watch CNN, it's going to be Anthony Fauci absolutely, legitimately used his Fifth Amendment right 111 times.
That's the issue that changed the Wyoming House of Representatives.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the issue.
Big time.
Yeah.
That special session, that was it right there. So another one, and the reason I wanted to end this here is just to implore you to do your research. Find out if the things that you're reading or you're hearing are actually true. Now, there's a piece in the Turkey Vulture this morning, and they title it Commentary. The Freedom Caucus are Wyomingites in name only. Vote accordingly. Now, this is written by a lawyer, and I deleted his name off here, but I don't really think it's necessary.
You can imagine how I feel about that.
Yeah. But he makes some pretty outrageous claims. So listen to this one. Many Freedom Caucus, and many FC is what he calls them, moved here because they like the political climate and pretend to understand our values. Bear from Missouri, Rodriguez Williams from California. They take their orders from National Freedom Caucus Central in Washington, D.C. Okay, so there's the first one. Okay, make sure, that one gets repeated all over the place. Why don't you ask somebody and to find out if it's true? How about this one? They receive dark money support from FC Central. Dark money is just that. It can't be traced. The donors are anonymous. The support is often in the form of false defamatory attack ads. How about this one? The FC created Checkgate, where money was handed out on the floor of the Wyoming House of Representatives. The FC touts itself as more freedom, less government. Really? And it goes on and on and on. And most of the stuff that's in this little op-ed, and again, written by a lawyer, there's some pretty defamatory claims in here. So the reason I bring it up is just to tell you, do your research, right? Don't believe everything you see just because Abe Lincoln is now doing movie reviews online. That's probably not true. Just try to verify what you're reading. And the more outrageous it is, the less likely it is that it's true. Okay, so we just spent 45 minutes talking with Brent Bean. You could read that article that was published about him. It's on Face. I mean, you can read it and you can say, yep, this is smut. That's pretty much all that it is. Same thing with this. There's a lot of what are definitely defamatory claims here. The FC want judges to be elected so they become politicians, bending the whimsy. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So just be aware of what you're reading. When you see something, why don't you do some research for yourself? All right, well, that'll about do it for today's installment. Don't hit that button yet, Ken. I got to find out what we've got on deck for tomorrow. I think we have Paul Heft in the studio tomorrow. He's going to be joining us. He's going to be on the program. I don't exactly know if he's going to be in studio or not.
Either way, you guys are in for a treat. I'm anxious for you to get to know my friend Paul.
Yeah, he's a hoot, man.
He is terrific.
So we'll have Paul Heft on the show tomorrow, and then on Friday we have candidate for Secretary of State, finally, Rachel Williams. So we'll talk to her on Friday. A big week on the program, man.
Very similar to my comments.
Ditto.
Yeah, you might have seen the Facebook post that I put up. I love Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel's good people. I like her. I've known her ever since she's been in the legislature. But anyway, that'll do it for today's installment of the broadcast, my friends. Have a good afternoon, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Don't miss the podcast. It's going to be a good one.